The following video clips are from coursework for basic algebra concepts. Click on the up or down arrows to move the operation to its problem. First, it's a very good idea. We suggest that you place around fractions.
Very good.
We must equal to a second expression. And the second expression is equal to a third expression. Let's put it another way. 4 says that if you add an expression to the left-hand side, multiply one side of the equation by an expression and drag it to the matching statement in list A as the second expression adding to the first expression symbol. When we place a slash through the equality symbol, expression multiplying times the first expression and parentheses, then Rule 10 says that you can move the parentheses. That is not correct. These two expressions are not equal. The equal sign with a slash through it with the correct statements in list B, plus the expression outside the parentheses multiplies times the A multiplies times the B, the original expression times the reciprocal 1 over the expression calculates to be 1. The points on the number line and write the variable x and then the less than symbol and then the variable y. If the point B.
Very good. It is very important to remember.
That point is 9 spaces. The absolute value of a negative 9. We represent the number arrow, -4 lands on the point tail on the number line that represents the number, which number is negative. Spaces further in the positive direction. Adding the +2 and the +3 together is represented by adding these two arrows together. And the tip of the final arrow lands on a point on the number line that represents the value, the number, a +5. Another arrow pointing 2 spaces in the negative direction to represent the number, a -2. Adding these two arrows together is adding the two negative numbers together. And the tip of the final arrow lands on a point on the number line that represents the value, a -6. A -4 plus a -2 equals what?
You were right. A -4 plus a -2 is equal to.
In other words, if one is positive and the other is negative, we do not use this procedure. Remember, you only calculate this way if both numbers have the same sign. Add together to be the negation symbol and then 5. The pointer is pointing to the button for what operation on the calculator?
Nicely done. According to the calculator, a -3 plus a -8.
2 over 3 ending parentheses. And when we press enter, we'll get the same value. You can represent the way the first expression plus the opposite of the second expression in the positive direction. And We add to the tip of that arrow an arrow pointing 3 spaces in the positive direction further. 9 becomes a positive 4 plus. And we draw an arrow 3 spaces in the negative direction to represent a negative 3. If both are positive or if both are negative. The symmetric rule or property says that this can be written as the second expression is equal to the first expression. Then the transitive property, Rule 3, says that the first expression is equal to the third expression. Then you can replace the first expression by the second expression in that statement. Is an example of which of the following rules?
Nicely done.
If you add an expression to the left-hand side of the equation, then you must add the same expression to the right-hand side of the equation. Can you write an example? If A is equal to B, then A times C is equal to B times C. Rule 9 is formally known as the commutative property of multiplication. The associative property says that you can regroup the terms in that expression by moving your parentheses in this way.
Nicely done. A plus the quantity B plus C equals
the expression outside the parentheses multiplying times the first expression in parentheses plus the expression outside the parentheses multiplying times the second expression inside the parentheses. Do not move parentheses if there is more than one kind of operation in the original expression.
Good. A plus 0 equals A is an example of the identity element for addition.
There exists something called the additive inverse, which we often call the opposite, such that the original expression plus the additive inverse equals 0. If you have the negative of an expression, then the negation property says that that is equal to a negative 1 times the expression. Our pattern. Can you write an example? One example may be A times B plus C times B raised to the 0 power. Then the value of that expression is 1. Not 0, 1. Rule 23 says that that is equal to the common base raised to the sum of the two powers. We are interested in finding the number that will make it a true statement. Trying our next number, we try the number 3. When we replace x by the value 3, checking with our facts of numbers, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 3 is equal to 9. 9 is equal to 9 is a true statement. We are going to learn to find the numbers that will make an open statement a statement.
Nicely done. We are going to learn to find the numbers that will make an open statement a true statement.
This is an example of the solution of an equation. We start with the equation in its most complex form. We use our rules to simplify that equation and make it simpler. We use our rules again to make it even simpler in form. And finally, in this example, in the next step, we make our equation into its simplest form. Our first basic pattern will use the important addition property of equality. We're going to look at our first basic pattern for to add the triangle expression. And remember, our addition property of equality says that we must add the same expression to the right-hand side of the equation. If we are at this step in the solution pattern, then the next step in the solution process is which of the following?
Good work. The next step in the solution process is answer B.
So our next step is to replace x plus 0 with x, and we rewrite the rest of the equation. In this section, we're going to see how we can solve simple equations using the multiplicative property of equality to multiply it by the triangle expression. Our multiplication property of equality, though, says that we must remember to multiply the left-hand side of the equation by the same expression in order to still have a true statement. If we are at this point in the solution pattern, then the next step in the solution process is which of the following?
Very good. If we are at this step in the solution process,
let's look at an example. We have x over 2 equal to 6. It makes sense if we have x being divided by 2 that if we want to make this talk about x all alone, we should multiply by 2. X over 2 equals 6. Then the next step in the solution process is which of the following?
You're right. If x over 2 equals 6,
remember, we multiply both sides by 2. We want to remind you that we don't usually show all of the steps that we have been discussing. In our example, x over 2 equals 6, we would definitely show the important first step of multiplying the left-hand side of the equation by 2 and multiplying the right-hand side of the equation by 2. But then we usually go directly to the solution statement, x equals 12 in this case. In this section, we will solve simple equations using the division property of equality. We have 1 times x. 1 is the multiplicative identity, and 1 times x is equal to x. So we replace 1 times x with x using substitution, and we rewrite the rest of our equation. If 2x equals 6, then the next step in the solution process is which of the following? Remember, we divide both sides of the equation by 2.
very nice. If 2x equals 6, then the next step is 2x over 2 is equal. But always remember that we are still using the important rules behind these steps, even if we are not showing the steps in our explanations.
Let's review how we solve simple equations. Our first example, x minus 4 equals 3. Right away, we notice that 4. To check the solution to the equation, the number value 7, we are going to take our original equation, x minus 4 equals 3, and we are going to replace x by the value that we think is the solution to the equation, and that is the value 7. So we replace the variable x in the open statement by the number value 7 by showing that which of the following is a true statement.
Very good. We show that 7 is a solution for the equation x minus 3 equals 4.
Let's look at another example of a simple equation. This time we're going to use the division property of equality. Here we have our example 4x equals 8. So the number value 2 makes the open statement a true statement. It is a solution value. And we have checked our work that describe the math between things that we can measure.
Good. Formulas describe math relationships between things that we can measure.
A unit is a fixed amount of something that you want to measure. Left-click and drag the unit symbol on the right side to the matching unit on the left side.
You're right. Nice job.
And we can calculate with units in the same way that we calculate with variables. We say that 2x plus 3x is equal to 5x. In the same way, we say that 2 inches plus 3 inches equals 5 inches. 2 miles plus 3 hours equals which of the following?
Very nice. You cannot add when the units are different. Your answer choice is B.
Perimeter means the distance around the outside of a figure. The perimeter of a rectangle is equal to 2 times the width of the rectangle plus 2 times the length of the rectangle. To replace, first of all, the width by the value for our rectangle, which is 5 inches. And we replace the length by the value for our rectangle, which is 10 inches. And we have calculated the perimeter, the distance around the outside of our rectangle, and it is equal to 30 inches. First of all, we can replace the perimeter in our formula with 50 feet, the measure in our problem. And we can replace the width in our formula with our measure from our problem, 10 feet. We have found the length of our rectangle, and it measures 15 feet. The area is the amount of flat surface inside the figure. 4x times 8x would be 32x squared when we multiply 4 inches times 8 inches, we have 32 inches squared. In any case, we have calculated the area of our rectangle and replace the area in our formula with our measure, 40 square feet. And we replace the length in our formula with our measure from the problem, 8 feet. If we have an object that is in motion at a certain speed, after a certain amount of time, the object will cover a certain distance. The distance formula expresses the relationship between these measures. Let's calculate the distance that an object travels at a rate of 25 miles per hour for a time of 3 hours. So we begin by replacing the rate in our formula with our measure in this problem, 25 miles per hour. And our distance is equal to 75 miles. So our first step is to replace the distance in our formula with its measure, 100 miles. And we replace the time in our formula with its measure, 2 hours. We have solved for our rate in this problem. And the rate for this object is 50 miles per hour. For additional information, please contact us at RgetzMedia@gmail.com or visit our website at www.RgetzMedia.com.